So, welcome to our webinar. First, some general housekeeping. If you're a registrant of this webinar, you should be receiving the slides afterwards. So, if you're doing screen captures or taking notes or anything, just keep in mind that you will be getting those slides. So, you'll have access to the information after the webinar. And the webinar will be recorded too. So, if you have to go back and review any of the statements made or you want to review the demo or anything like that, you're welcome to do so after we post that for on-demand replay. Now, you might be asking yourself what maximizing the performance and availability of endpoint computing resources means. So this webinar is not necessarily about optimizing the endpoint itself, but optimizing the technology stack so that you always deliver the best performance and availability to the user sitting in front of that endpoint. And it's not just about performance and availability, but also about the risk and the cost of these solutions. So today you'll learn about the two companies at IGEL and Login VSI and how we're working together to bring continuous end-to-end testing to production environments and enabling a proactive approach to finding issues before end users are impacted. So who's going to be speaking to you today? Well, of course, myself. I'm Blair Parkhill. I'm the U.S. product manager here for LoginVSI. You might see Mark Plettenberg's name up there. He gave our earlier webinar. It was about 6 in the morning my time, but in Europe it was 2 p.m. Where he was presenting from. So thank you, Mark, for doing our first one. We typically will, kind of provide two webinars, one for Europe and another one for the U.S. So Mark did that one. And then we have Bertie from IGEL. Bertie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Blair. Yeah, of course. Well, as Blair said, my name is Bertie. I'm an enterprise pre-sales engineer at IGEL. Dealing mainly with enterprise customers in the southern Germany, and I'm happy to be here and looking forward to having nice questions from your side and introducing you to IGEL technology.
Right on. Thanks, Bertie. Yeah, and I'm sure, like many of us in the EUC space, myself, I've been with LoginVSI for about 4.5 years, but I've been doing this kind of solutions work for the last 20, believe it or not. So, what a ride! But one of these topics coming up next is something that I've witnessed even for the last 20 years, and that's the rate of change just continues to increase. And this is not just a symptom of Moore's law and processor technology changes. But we're seeing an unprecedented rate of change, which can have just a huge impact on end user experience. And we're feeling that more and more and more with technologies like Microsoft Windows and all of this. It's all around us. And just about any end user in the world can attest to the impact that this can cause and will cause at some point. So when it comes to this change, perhaps we have felt these changes based on some of these examples that I have. So if you're familiar with the Windows ecosystem, we've just had Windows 7 go end of life last January. And we had a lot of enterprise customers that have had to migrate or move their compute infrastructures, their end user compute infrastructures from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And of course, that carries with it, a performance demand increase, as well as a lot of other configuration changes and things like that. So definitely no small feat to move from Windows 7 to Windows 10, but take on top of that the impact of just installing the service branches for Windows 10 can also have a pretty big change impact. Now, our VDI Like a Pro research community did have questions about the migration from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And believe it or not, even though we've reached end of life for Windows 7, still about 20% of our community says they're still using Windows 7 on their end user computing environment. So, I guess that's no surprise. It's not easy to go from one to the other, especially if you're a large enterprise. So another thing that you may have felt are Office updates. So let's say moving from Office 2013 to 16 or Office 2016 to what we're seeing many enterprises do today, that's Office 365. To give you some examples of what we see in Office based upon our research and our testing, with Office, the newer versions of Office, you have a lot more integration and services that run in the operating system, like OneDrive. Outlook even has to synchronize a lot of its mail folders and things like that. You have Teams, a lot of these collaboration frameworks put a pretty high demand on networking as well as compute. And we're certainly seeing that in a lot of the testing that we've done. So moving from different versions of Office can carry that impact. If you're using a line of business application or a business critical application, Epic's a pretty popular one that we know. Updating from Epic former versions like 2017 to 2018, based upon some dialogue that we've had with some of our customers, they say we've seen about an increase in performance demand of about 9% quarter over quarter. So, if I start with a great solution at the beginning of the year, that could be a 36% increase in performance demand for Epic alone, not to mention the end of year performance lift that you need to provide for just to go from 2017 to 2018. So, those line of business applications are going to continue to increase in the amount of demand that they have. And then we look at things like the Meltdown Inspector vulnerabilities and the mitigations associated with some of these other processor vulnerabilities like Cache Out, which just was a new one last month, and Foreshadow. So what we're talking about here are vulnerability patches to the ecosystem here, operating systems, BIOS, processors themselves. The performance impact on putting those updates into place and those patches into place certainly do change the performance profile of our solution. So I'm sure any of you on the phone is familiar with at least one of these impacts that you've had to deal with. And not to mention that it doesn't just stop there. If you look at the complete end user computing technology stack, there are so many layers to this. And it only takes one of these layers to change to really have an impact on that end user computing environment. And that certainly includes the applications that we use in these environments. So coverage for this full stack is something we certainly specialize in here at LoginVSI. So let me introduce LoginVSI just a little bit. So LoginVSI helps all enterprises maximize the end user experience by providing tools and software to automatically test and validate the impact of change, as well as provide the right information to also help counter this effect through optimizing the environment. Optimizing so many of those layers can have a benefit, a big benefit, in terms of the performance of the solution. And we've been at the center of the end user computing space now with our tools and software for over 10 years. We've got about 350 million tests completed using our software. We got 600,000 synthetic users deployed, 400 customers over 50 countries. So, this increase in change requires a unique tool set like ours, and we're certainly seeing that adopted quite nicely. Well, when it comes to what LoginVSI does for the community in general, it's that pursuit of an excellent end user experience all the way to the endpoint. So speaking of endpoints, let me hand it over to my buddy Bertie to give you a little and very brief introduction on IGEL.
Yeah, thank you very much, Blair. Well, I would like to start the introduction of IGEL itself first with a couple of facts about our company. So, well, IGEL is based in Germany and was founded in 1989 in a town called Augsburg. From there, they still serve their customers with a development team of 75 plus people, which are developing our so-called IGEL OS, which is an IGEL operating system based on Linux, and which also develop our so-called Universal Management Suite, which is our management software we use to manage all the endpoints. Our headquarters is in Bremen, and we are the market leader in Germany, second one in EMEA, and third one worldwide. Well, we are working on that ranking, so we're trying to get better and improve even more, and we want to be the world's #1, of course, as everyone. What our main message is with our operating system and with our software message, or with our software dedicated approach, is that we want to be simple, smart, and secure. This goes very good in line with what LoginVSI is providing. So this is why we have decided to integrate the LoginVSI Login Enterprise solution into our operating system from the very beginning. So with every single operating system we deliver, we also deliver the Login Enterprise solution. This helps us. It helps LoginVSI increasing the performance of their solution. Yeah, so this is mainly what IGEL is so far. I would go a bit more into detail about our ecosystem a little later, but now handing over to Blair again, and he will give you a further overview about LoginVSI.
Sweet, thanks, Bertie. And if any of you follow IGEL closely, you've probably seen that just over the last couple of months, they've had a super successful year last year, and their Disrupt event just seems to be growing. Who knows? You know, in the next year or two, it could be as big as some of our other industry, huge industry events. So great success there, and good to see, Bertie. Now, when it comes to this technology stack, obviously IGEL sits at the top of this stack. IGEL is the point between the end user and everything that you see below the client here. So as we know, that's where the rubber meets the road. And this is where end users interact with their workspaces, their applications. So if anything in there, whether it's is in bad shape, so that's bad application performance, unavailability, downtime, you can dramatically overspend because one of these things isn't delivering. You need to kind of add resources or just gradual system degradation. Like I'm filling up my disk drives and they tend to slow down. I'm sure IGEL probably spends a fair amount of time trying to explain to customers that if they are receiving a poor experience, it's not a result of their software endpoint. It's probably a result of something in this technology stack. So LoginVSI really helps to visualize the performance through that entire stack as opposed to individual layers, and in providing a good representation of the current state of the end user experience for all of the users. And IGEL delivers that experience to the end users anywhere, anytime, on any device, which is really sweet. And this is why a partnership between us two makes so much sense, because it allows us to deliver the best possible end user experience, a low cost, secure, and easy to manage endpoint. So, I think it probably would be good for us to learn a little more about how IGEL works so we can really paint the picture for you as to how the two of us work together to make for a much better end user compute environment and application.
So, yeah, thank you, Blair. So, well, I was talking about the IGEL OS, and you might ask yourself, what the heck means that IGEL OS to you? And the IGEL OS itself, as I mentioned earlier, is a Linux-based operating system which has been developed by us. So we tweaked a lot around the standard Ubuntu Linux to allow to be much more secure on an enterprise level and be able to do a very modular configuration of that particular Linux. The Linux operating system itself is a read-only operating system with just this very small and tiny little partition which allows or area which allows to save and store some sort of files. But that is exactly what gives us a big improvement in the market due to the fact that we are really enterprise ready and secure, and we can minimize the procurement costs of your environment due to the fact that we can standardize every single endpoint, which is an x86 device, into an IGEL client, and that allows us to be also hardware agnostic. So it means, yeah, we can pretty much converge every single x86 device. So it doesn't matter if it's a Dell Wise client, if it's our client, or if it's a client from HP or from any other supplier on the market. So this is a very, very big advantage in the market. You see in the upper right corner that it's also possible to customize our firmware. Well, I will go a bit more into detail on the next slide about that. So our solution is engineered for the enterprise, and I have mentioned earlier, engineered for the enterprise means in that sense that we can convert any x86 device, but what we could also deliver is a so-called IGEL UD Pocket. That is a live USB pen, including the whole IGEL operating system, which allows to temporarily transfer any x86 device into an IGEL endpoint. So that means if you're looking or if you're watching out for bring your own device strategies, or if you'd like to bring the devices into your management network, so into the IGEL UMS, which is inside your company and where you manage all the clients from. This concept allows you to integrate the clients into your internal network without using any VPN connection. You need a tiny little piece of appliance for that, which is called the IGEL Cloud Gateway. I will mention a bit more about that a little later. But to close that circle, the IGEL thin clients we deliver also. So that means that we do also develop and sell thin client hardware. So we have a clear focus on software, but we do also sell our thin client hardware, from a very small device up to a high performing device, which even allows you to do graphics intense use cases. In regards to the customizing, we see it here. Customizing means on our side that we do really listen to our customers, which means you can raise solution requests, feature requests to us. You can even supply your application, if it's a Linux-based application, to us. And we can qualify it as a custom partition, which means that you can add on top of our standardized IGEL OS, which is read-only, an additional partition, which includes your TeamViewer, your SAP GUI, whatever you like, you can integrate, as long as it is available as a Linux application. And on top of that, we are also willing to deliver enterprise scale concepts. So that leads to another feature we do support, which is high availability. So our IGEL UMS, which you see on the right-hand side, is the so-called Universal Management Suite, which does all the management. This instance can be used as a high availability component using a couple of load balancers. So this is relevant if we are talking about business critical applications, or if we are talking about having a lot of boot storms against the management console in the morning when you turn on all your devices. To extend on that, we do also have additional features like the IGEL management interface, which is a REST API. It also comes with a PowerShell integration, which allows you to collect information and data out of the UMS and transfer that data into your additional systems. This can be an inventory management software. This can be other software like SCCM or anything like that. Additionally, we do also deliver a so-called UMA, a Unified Management Agent. That is a small MSI package which you can install on pretty much every single Windows device. It doesn't matter if it's a Windows 7 or Windows 10 device. It will run on a very small client in the background in the system tray. And then you can integrate these units into our management console as well, just to have an overview about your whole ecosystem. We are currently also working on a concept transforming this UMA agent into a so-called converter version. That means that one will allow you to convert a unit where the agent runs on into an IGEL OS Linux endpoint, which gives you the opportunity to extend the lifetime of your endpoints, due to the fact that our operating system only needs a very small amount of requirements. You only need 2 GB of RAM and a 4 GB of flash memory. That's all you need, and it has to be an x86 device. On top of that, or in addition to that, we also do deliver a so-called asset inventory tracker. So if you imagine you have additional devices connected to your endpoints, like headsets from either Sennheiser or Jabra or whatever component, or printers, we can get information from these devices, like firmware versions, which allows us to identify which devices are not updated yet with the latest, greatest firmware, due to the fact that an old firmware has shown an issue. And last but not least, the IGEL Cloud Gateway, which I mentioned earlier, in combination with a UD Pocket, allows you to connect your devices from outside the company without VPN into your UMS management network. That works either in a DMZ zone, or you can also install the IGEL Cloud Gateway into the cloud. It's up to you. So that's all I wanted to say about our enterprise solution so far. But so what I would like to tell you now is that we see a lot of demand in the market for having employees to being able to work from pretty much everywhere, not only from home, but also from the office, but also from anywhere. If you sit at the airport, you want to work from there. And our concept with IGEL OS allows us to, well, distribute our OS on into all of these locations, and give the opportunity by configuring so-called profiles through our IGEL UMS to connect to all the above architectures you see on this slide. We can communicate with VMware, we can communicate with Citrix, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and also smaller companies like Parallels are included here as well. So we do serve pretty much all the VDI infrastructures which are available on the market. And if we go to the next slide, we can even show you that we are also supporting, as one of the first hardware and software vendors, the Linux-based so-called RD Core service, which we have developed together with Microsoft for almost half a year now, which allows us to directly contact and communicate with Windows virtual desktop environments. And that's really unique in our operating system. There is even a trial version available on our website. So if you do have like a draft environment from Microsoft to play around with it, you can also use our IGEL OS, trialing the IGEL OS, trialing the UMS. The UMS comes for free. You only have to pay the license for the IGEL OS, and then you can connect using the Windows Virtual Desktop implementation to your Windows Virtual Desktop environment. Just a small remark on the licensing thing, because I was talking about licensing. Our concept looks like that we do deliver a so-called workspace edition license. That is the IGEL OS license. It comes with a maintenance, and on top of that, you can also have the so-called enterprise management pack, which includes, for example, the IGEL Cloud Gateway and the Asset Inventory Tracker, which adds features on top of the IGEL OS. And well, that's so far all from my side, and I think I hand it over to Blair now again.
Thanks, Bertie. Yeah, the Windows Virtual Desktop is definitely a technology that a lot of us are talking about nowadays. And with the Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session capability in Windows Virtual Desktop, that's definitely going to, I think, open up the doors for some significant benefits to application session-based types of solutions. And of course, I'm sure we'll have IGEL at the endpoint there with a lot of this new technology. In fact, Bertie, did you know, I think 98% of the Windows Virtual Desktop instances are running Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session. So interesting to see that the community is definitely taking note and also identifying with a very new technology that's it's going to be a pretty cool thing for our market. So
yeah, that's great, Jeff.
yeah. So let's talk about use cases a little bit. So IGEL just fits so great when it comes to Login VSI and these use cases. And that's because we're already integrated, as Bertie said, into the IGEL OS. In fact, anything 11.03 or greater has our launcher technology installed. With continuous testing, what we're basically doing is setting up a test that will run 24/7 by 365, and instead of considering it like a monitor, think of it like it's just a continuous test that's constantly running from just about anywhere in the world. So you might be asking, well, what part does IGEL have in that? Well, IGEL makes it easy. I mean, if you think about deploying endpoints or these test systems around the world, you need to be able to put those systems or those endpoints, you need to be able to start them up at those remote locations. And if you don't want to have people there, if you'd rather just kind of click a button and have IGEL deploy that for you, that certainly is a very easy way to do that. And we'll get in a little bit deeper into continuous testing. But application load testing is something that we also do. And application load testing allows us to apply, as it would imply, load against an application infrastructure to see how it shakes out from bottlenecks and things like that. Again, IGEL makes this easy because if you think about how am I going to load test a particular application or workspace infrastructure, I need to have enough of these endpoints kind of operating against that infrastructure, against that system to make it sweat a little bit. And what we're really looking for is how does this system behave as it's sweating? Again, we'll go a little more into that. But you might be asking, what makes all of this work? So let's get into the Login VSI technology a little bit. Everything that we do is primarily centered around what we call a synthetic user. And the synthetic user is something that does the testing as you have it set up and as you require. So a synthetic user has a number of different capabilities and a number of different benefits. Number one, a synthetic user is very sensitive to change, where humans might have to wait 2 or 3 seconds to really say, "Hey, I'm getting tired of waiting." Synthetic users can feel a change of milliseconds, right? So if I'm waiting for 100 or 500 milliseconds for something, that could start to tip us off at a trend that things are starting to slow down. Having a synthetic user that's able to feel that much sooner than a human would gives you an opportunity to be more proactive about resolving some of those issues. And it's also a very consistent behavior. In your workforce, you don't know if what a human is doing, am I streaming multiple YouTube videos or looking at Facebook or any of those things? Is that a reason why their workspace performance or application performance has degraded? With a synthetic user, it's going to be doing exactly what you want it to over and over and over again, which is very consistent. So if you do see an issue with the end user experience for that synthetic user, you can rule out the fact that this was because your real user was actually doing something different. So it's a very good way to kind of find a fast line to a resolution or to even find out what the issue was. And then lastly, a synthetic user doesn't get tired. It will continuously run 24 by 7 by 365 and report back on any of the experiences that it has. Now let's apply this to a particular, specific use case. And I like to use something like a practice management system or some type of EMR system for a medical practice. And we have a number of different hospitals and clinics and medical practices that we have as customers. In fact, IGEL and Login VSI together share a number of these customers. And so what the synthetic user would do in this case is it would log into the workspace, it would start a session and open the EMR, it would load a patient record, apply a change to that record, save a change to that record, and then close and log off. Now, the cool part about this is that synthetic user is basically timing how long it takes for each one of those interactions to happen. And what we're looking for is if an interaction takes longer than normal, I want to know about it so that I can do something about that before that actually starts to impact productivity and end user experience. So that's basically a synthetic user use case. Now, those synthetic users are used in the application load testing and continuous testing type of case. So these applications are they largely define the end user experience and productivity on any desktop infrastructure. And a typical digital workspace is comprised of so many different applications. So you want a user that can use all of these applications. So if it's changes in the applications or the desktop configuration or underlying infrastructure, all of these can really impact the performance. And what we're looking for is not to have that impact ever. So in practice, many potential bottlenecks or changes in behavior only manifest themselves when the system is under high load. And that's what the application load testing is for. It enables enterprises to quickly identify potential performance issues by measuring and comparing application load times and application responsiveness. And the virtual users, as you saw in the last example, they log onto the desktop, start and interact with these applications at scale, so you really get that feel. So that's the application load test and continuous performance and availability testing by these synthetic users. You're basically proactively determining when performance and availability are at risk and taking action before that situation arises. And that can prevent, again, loss of productivity and even loss of employee engagement. You really don't want to touch those if that's a big part of, the revenue of your business. And having these virtual users run 24 by 7 by 365 to safeguard the infrastructure, those desktops, and those applications from one or more locations, and that includes cloud, Login Enterprise can alert you when any of these change, when the performance of or availability of any of these change. You get an instant notification. Again, think of it as perhaps like a canary in the coal mine. It basically tells you before a bad situation can happen. It gives you kind of a head start on resolving that issue. And of course, with this, with Login VSI and Login Enterprise, it can even give you automatically generated daily, weekly, or even monthly SLA reports. So a lot of this kind of wraps up into describing what this ecosystem feels like to end users and when it changes. So let's look at how this works when we start to incorporate the use of IGEL. Now, what you see here in the top middle is the Login Enterprise virtual appliance. That virtual appliance is basically the brains of the operation. Now, in the last example where you want to know what is my end user experience like from different places. I have offices in Germany, Ireland, maybe Boston and California. And I want to know if the end user experience at any one of those locations degrades or changes or becomes unavailable. So what Login Enterprise will do is it will talk to the IGEL device, and that IGEL device is running what we call a launcher. And that launcher is basically there to set up a session to the desktop and application resource pools. And those resource pools could be hosted by Citrix, by Microsoft, by VMware, and even some others. We have lots of custom connectors to be able to do that. So once that session is established, then that's when the virtual user takes over and it starts interacting with these applications and recording those timings and reporting all of those back to Login Enterprise so that you get kind of a heads up on what things look like from a production perspective. And you have a real-time dashboard. So this dashboard will show you things like application failures. It will show you application, performance issues. It'll show you things like login failures, login performance, as well as any latency, round trip latency between the endpoints and the hosted applications or workspaces. So you really get this view of, is it healthy? If it's not, where is it not healthy? Is this a global problem? Is this just a remote office problem? Things like that. So it really gives you a good idea where to start your troubleshooting if things start to go south. And when it comes to applications, we give you an even deeper look into those applications. So once it interacts with those applications, you can do things like set thresholds. I expect an application to allow me to log in within 3 seconds. And after I log in, I expect to be able to pull up in a record within 5 seconds. And I want to be able to change that record in 5 seconds. So what we're doing is we can set up a threshold. And anytime any one of those interactions crosses that threshold, then you're alerted. And again, it gives you an opportunity to get ahead of the problem. Take that a step further. And when you're looking at this data over time, you might start to notice that you're starting to see some peaks and spiky type of behavior that may correlate to a particular time of the day, for example. This could be when antivirus is running, instances like that. So when you start to notice those peaks, you can start to correlate those to, okay, what's changing in my environment that may cause that? You notice that the peaks here in this graph on February 4th weren't as high as they were on February 5th. So whatever is happening, I'm starting to see a trend where things are starting to slow down on patient lookups. So seeing that trend allows me to be able to get ahead of the problem and potentially solve that before it impacts the doctors or administrators that are working at these practices. It's certainly a huge benefit to have to make sure that your productivity and your production workforce is not impacted by these things. So I think, for those of you that are, demo inclined, we certainly have one prepared for you, and I would love to give you a quick demo of this environment. First thing I'd like to do is show you, where do you get all of this? And you can get our software from our download page. As you can see, and as I've mentioned, this is a virtual appliance. This virtual appliance can be delivered as an appliance you can import into ESX or Zen server. You can import it into Microsoft Hyper-V. And if you'd like to update it offline because you're a dark site or something, you can certainly do that. We give you all the tools to download that. Once you download that virtual appliance, you can simply import it into your hypervisor, click go, answer about 5 questions, give it a chance to reboot, and all of a sudden you have your virtual appliance that's up and running and waiting for you to interact with it. Once you log in, you get a nice clean dashboard that allows you to take your next step. So, you can get that downloaded, get it installed and up and running in, 20 minutes or so. So already, we're trying to make this much easier for you. So if we look at, if we take a peek over here at the UMS, the IGEL UMS, you can see that we build a number of profiles. And basically a profile is how we tell an endpoint to behave. So if I want an endpoint to behave like a Login Enterprise launcher, all I have to do is assign that profile to one of the devices. But how do we make sure that that launcher has the right information it needs? Well, this is where we're built into IGEL OS. So if you go here and you want to configure that endpoint, you simply just go to the Login Enterprise accessory. You enter the URL of the virtual appliance and the secret that allows you to have a secure connection to that. And once you set that those 2 small bits of information, you now have a profile that's ready to use on any endpoint. So if we look at the IGEL launcher, you can see that this is a virtual machine that I have that's running the IGEL OS software. And I've assigned the Login Enterprise launcher profile to it. And as soon as you do that, it'll ask you, do you want to reboot or do you want to apply it now? They give you so many easy ways to get that, to get that going. So, you've got that endpoint that's got the profile, to it. That just was just a drag and drop type of moment, super easy. And so if we take a look at that endpoint, you can see I have the endpoint software running here. And I need to turn this into a launcher. So what I do is I simply go back here and I have that, I have created a job that tells that endpoint to be a launcher. And this can be a launcher all day. This can be a launcher at night, whatever you want. And so I'm going to execute the job. That job has been triggered and sent to that endpoint. And so we should be able to go over to the endpoint. And once the endpoint receives that instruction, it will fire up the launcher, the launcher software. And now we've got a running launcher. That was just simply right-clicking, clicking execute, and boom. You've got a launcher, and you can deploy that at scale. So you could have many, many launchers around the world operating just with the click of a button. Now, if we go back here to our Login Enterprise Management interface, and I look at launchers, you can see that now my launcher shows up in the available launchers that I'd like to use. And I have a number of environments that are based on those IGEL devices. So I'm going to turn those on. And once I turn those on, I should be able to go back. And once the launcher receives instruction, it starts up the virtual user, and you'll see the virtual user get logged in, and this virtual user runs this assigned application. And it's got a script, or not a script, but a workflow that it's being instructed to go through. And once it receives those instructions and knows what it needs to do for its workflow, then it will start the applications and start to interact with those applications. So that's what you're seeing here. You've seen multiple launcher sessions starting up on a single IGEL OS device. And once that gets started, you will be able to see the applications doing their thing. You can see right now that it's resolving the environment, it's recording login times, it's loading its schedule and loading its scripts. And now you can see it's opening an EMR practice management system. And my hands are off the keyboard and the mouse, but what you'll see is a virtual user starting to interact. And these are all the things that I was talking about earlier, where we're recording timings and things like that. How long does it take to log into the registration desk? Those are the types of, that's a type of information that we're recording as we're doing this. How long does it take to do a patient lookup? All of this stuff is very helpful. And if that changes, again, we're recording that. And the other thing is, it's not just limited to one application. It's limited to, it's unlimited, basically. You can schedule as many applications as you like in this workflow, and then go through that workflow and basically do that on a 24/7 by 365 basis. So, now that we've seen that, we can go back to the dashboard here. And you can see that we're starting to get information from each one of these launchers from around the world, whether it's here in Colorado, whether it's in Boston, Amsterdam, Germany. You basically have them running and reporting on that kind of information. if, for example, we see that latency is starting to be a problem, we've set a threshold of 25 milliseconds, and we've noticed that we're starting to, to go above that. That gives us an opportunity to take a peek and see if that might be an issue that's just related to that one site or that one region. And then, if there are any application types of issues, things like that, we certainly have some exposure to be able to get that resolved. So hopefully this gives you a bit of an idea of just how easy it is to get the system up and running, but also to, with an IGEL-based solution, to get these launchers, started up in many different remote locations doing exactly what you need, so that if there's an issue before your end users know. So I'm personally just a huge fan of this collaboration, of this coordinated type of solution between IGEL and Login VSI. So Bertie, I think I'm going to hand this over to you to give you an opportunity for some words here about the partnership.
Yeah, thank you very much, Blair. Well, as you said, I mean, the partnership is more than just good. So due to the fact that the solution of LoginVSI and the solution of us from IGEL are as its own quite good or very good, we are even better together. And what we have clearly transferred, I think, the message should be that we can ease up your end user experience even more with the cooperation of LoginVSI, due to the fact that we can measure performance, but also keep away your headaches from the endpoint, due to the fact that we have the IGEL OS operating system running on the endpoint. What it also brings with it is that we can reduce a massive amount of cost due to the fact that we can increase efficiency. I have a good example of one of our customers, which is managing currently 10,000s of devices, where just one person is managing all these devices through our management console. And this one person could also use the LoginVSI or Login Enterprise launcher to do the performance testing as well. And I mean, that is a very, very big advantage in the cooperation together with LoginVSI. And the other thing is that we can measure a very good desktop performance and safeguard the application level. And that leads to an opportunity that we can fully automate testing without having users doing that testing. And I think that's a perfect fit. And yep. I mean, the cooperation is quite great.
Yep, it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun, and we definitely have got a great partnership together. Now, you might be asking yourself, how can I get more information? Again, we're going to provide you these slides, but feel free to take a screen capture or something, or write these down. From a Login VSI perspective, if you want to know more about our product called Login Enterprise, we have a knowledge base that goes through. It has release notes, it has installation information, it even has application templates. So if you are using Epic, or you're using Cerner, or you're using Office, or you name it, we've got templates already for you that allow you to get up and running with those business applications quite quickly. And as I pointed out earlier, you can download the virtual appliance trial, and you can get a trial license by requesting it via this landing page. And then we have an IGEL partner page that describes our partnership and has a lot of this information, this useful information. And I suppose even our webinar could be posted there. Now, IGEL has very similar. So Bertie, you can walk us through what IGEL offers to learn more.
Yeah, yes, of course, yeah. Before I do that, I have seen that we have received the first question. Maybe we will do that afterwards. I just want to mention, yeah, we do have a knowledge base as well. We do have trial software, as you see, for the IGEL OS, for the UMS. You can download it and test it for at least a period of 90 days. And what we do also have is a very big community, which consists of almost 2,500 plus users, which are from our customer base, which are we ourselves. So all techie guys are in there, and you can raise your questions. You find a lot of information. You can find a community HCL. You can find a lot of stuff in there just to learn about IGEL as well. We do also have an IGEL Academy, which allows you to train and to train yourself, watch some videos, do even the certification through that IGEL Academy. So there's a lot of collateral available to learn about IGEL and also LoginVSI. And now I think there is a question from Stefan.
Yep, it's a
Right?
good time to do that. You want to read it,
Yeah.
or I'll
So,
read it to you. Let's see here. So he asks, is there an option to lock, blank, hide the screen of an IGEL device while those tests are being executed so that nobody interfaces with the process and or hijacks the process? I've not tested that myself, but maybe Bertie, you're familiar with that.
well, I have not yet tested it, but what we can do from IGEL side is we can use a lock screen before that whole operations happen, and that lock screen can lock after a certain amount of time. And we can also, yeah, this allows you to lock the whole screen while it is running in the background. So you can add a local user for that IGEL client, which allows you to lock down the IGEL device itself and allows you to run all the process in the background.
That's great. That's great. Um, let's see. I think we have a couple more questions here. And let's see here. Yeah, so another question that we got was, do you support ARM-based devices converting by IGEL OS as well?
Well, so far we don't do this. We are currently investigating a couple of platforms already, but we are not in the position to say anything about it by when it will become live. We are looking into that market as well, but we do not have a final solution yet. It's not that easy to transfer or to get the operating system up and running on every single ARM platform. So you have to focus on some dedicated platforms due to the fact that every single ARM platform is behaving differently.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's see, another question. I'm running IGEL version 10. I haven't updated to 11 yet, and I'm wondering if I can still use this solution. Well, I do know that as Bertie had mentioned earlier, that it is possible to use a custom partition in IGEL OS. And we do actually have Linux bits that will work as a part of that partition. So if you've not yet gone to 11.03 or later, you certainly can use this with IGEL OS 10. But we really love IGEL OS 11. It just makes things even that much more easy. So let's see here. We have another question. Let's see, after we convert the device with IGEL, is there a way to configure, update the BIOS of the device?
Well, I can answer this quite quickly. Well, it's not yet possible, but we are working on that feature and there will come a solution for that within this year.
Oh, that's great. You guys are moving pretty quick on a lot of this stuff. So, okay. Well, that's all of the questions that I see. I don't know if we have any other questions coming in from other channels, but I'm going to assume that we don't. So with that, I think, I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for joining us today. It's been our pleasure to, give you some of the information about this great joint partnership that we've had that we'll continue to build. And if you'd like, you can certainly get in touch with us through a number of different channels. But I think, the best way is to hit us up at info@loginvsi.com or just go to our website at loginvsi.com. We've got a partner page for IGEL. And of course, it's just as easy to go to igel.com and learn more about us as well. So again, I want to thank you all for joining. It's been our pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.